looking for that nice even pace. Nice and straight, finding a nice distance. Very good. Once again, a great example of what we're looking for in the hunter ring. Just not a lot changing, coming to and away from the jumps or in between. Just a nice, steady, smooth ride. You don't see a lot going on. If there are adjustments being made, it should look very smooth and even. We're going to move on to our jumpers. And we do have the same line here that we will start with, and then we'll move on to our bending line we have set up for our jumpers. It's a pretty tight kind of rollback bending line here. Taylor, do you feel ready? If you want to go ahead and just come down the 4-stride line, our jumpers do not have to go in that same smooth pace. They can be, you expect them to be very adjustable. They may not have to do an exact 12-foot stride here. And what you're looking for is they're clearing the jumps and they're going forward, no refusals, no knockdowns, and obviously we want them to be able to cover ground pretty well and make, as we're going to see later, tight turns as well. They can have a little more unconventional of a jumping style. They do not have to be quite as round through their back. They don't have to reach and be quite as square through their shoulders and their front legs. Although sometimes that helps with jumping form and them getting over the jumps, but you'll notice a lot of times jumpers will tuck their legs a little tighter maybe, and jump up a little more, things like that. All right, let's have, that's my name, go ahead and do that same line. You see he's very up in the bridle, he's very forward, very light on his front end. Just going to make a tighter turn here. Nice and easy, jumps up nice and big. Does a nice 4 in there as well. Gets plenty of clearance over that second jump. I think we need to go ahead, we're going to have them do the blue jump around to this black and white jump here so you can see the tighter turns they have to make in the jumper ring. It's not just about going fast and having speed, but they also have to be able to adjust that stride and make pretty tight turns as well, easily. Okay, Taylor, let's go ahead. If you want to come across, maybe get a right lead, do your blue jump to this black and white jump going towards the in-gate, that'd be great. So she doesn't have much room coming off the rail. You're going to see that she's going to have to get the horse adjusted here. We're looking for a nice line from the first jump to the second jump that's going to get her there very nicely in the shortest amount of time and still being able to have a clear ride. That was a nice tidy turn there. That's what we're looking for. All right, let's do the same thing. Once again, very up in the bridle. He's going forward. You notice too, these jumper riders, a lot of times, although they might get off their back through the turns, if they make these tight turns, they're going to sit back and regulate the horse a little more to slow him down, maybe open up the stride coming through the line. Very nice. You might have also noticed too, some of the jumpers, they don't have to be, they're not looking at them to jump over the center of the jump necessarily. They can jump the jump on whatever line is best for that ride. They're usually the jumps, now these are not set on a certain distance. The riders have to make adjustments to the horse's stride to fit in the distances that they need. I think we'll go ahead and open it up for questions at this point in time, if we have any. Do you have any questions regarding maybe Hunt seat equitation? Go into that a little further. Okay.
Laurel hit on it earlier. If you read in the front of the horse show program, when it talks about the hunters and the jumpers, it specifically says that the jumpers can be more reckless. And like you said, you can't be more reckless. You have to be more technically correct. And I think as the committee, you guys need to change that verbiage somehow, because it gives the wrong impression.
The question was regarding in the rule book, or in the front of the programs, the morning books, they talk about the jumpers are allowed to be more reckless, and that probably that wording is not actually very good, and she's suggesting maybe that's something we need to touch on to get changed, the wording there.
If you pull out your Grand National program and read it, it says the jumpers can be more reckless because it doesn't matter. Basically, is what it says. And so
reckless
for years, and it's just I've never. But you have to be more technically correct.
Yeah, it is. Reckless probably isn't a good word to describe that. I would agree. I think that it has to be. It's a more technical ride, and that they do have to. Make adjustments between the jumps. They have to be very careful to the jumps, because if they're reckless, they're going to use more chance of being having rails knocked down, or as the jumps go up, crashes and stuff like that. You have to still obviously ride very well to make that happen. So running reckless probably would not help that. Yeah, sometimes you might hear it as point and shoot jumping, but it's not quite that. It's really nothing like that. Another question?
I mentioned that the second horse actually sliced these two jumps, making a straighter line.
Yes. She was mentioning that the second horse in the second jumper here sliced this line from the stripe jump to the stripe jump. Which I touched on a little bit, in that they don't have to go exactly straight to the center of each jump, that to help shave time and not necessarily do a bending line as the first horse did, where they come off the jump and make a turn, that they actually can jump on an angle from one jump to the other. And that's perfectly acceptable in the jumpers, and you'll see that a lot.
I think a good point to make is that the person that's going to win the jumpers is the person that puts the least amount of strides between the jumps, and that has absolutely nothing to do with going fast and everything to do with the track that you make.
Julie made a good point that the jumpers is not necessarily, the horse that's going to win the jumpers is not necessarily the horse that is going to be going the fastest, that it's not necessarily just about speed. You want to have a fast ride and that the time is good, but that doesn't necessarily mean fast. That means you put in a safe number of strides between the jumps that's going to get you there in the quickest time. If you're going to have to make tight turns, tidy turns, sometimes if you're going too fast, you're not going to be able to make those turns, and that's a very important aspect of the jumpers, that, as I said, they have to be very adjustable, and usually the most adjustable horse and the most well-planned ride is going to be the ride that you see with the fastest time in winning. Any more questions or comments? Yes?
In the Coliseum, when we were watching the judging in there, how much of that is confirmation and how much of that is actual, control and performance of the horse?
Laura wants to answer that question for you.
Yes, this is something that is very different from the rest of the Morgan world. Here, Morgan type has nothing to do with the judging. There's nowhere that type comes into this. Whereas in most any other Morgan class, that you'll see at any show, there's a percentage that the judging is judged on type. It might be, and I'm not sure, I've forgotten over the years, but I think 40% in regular classes. Years ago, all the championships were stripped, and it was 50-50, I believe. And I don't know what the percentages are. I'm talking off the top of my head there. But here, none of that comes into play. In fact, in the USEF rules, if you read the hunter division, nowhere is there a hunter type. It talks about style and smoothness and safety, brilliance, but nowhere is there a defined type, hunter type. And so also here, Morgan type is not mentioned in the rules. So that's a very big distinction. I mentioned at the beginning that there are a couple other rules that are different between the USEF rules and the Morgan rules, and one concerns Morgan feet. Nowhere in the USEF rules is length of toe mentioned or what kind of shoe, other than pads are allowed. But in the Morgan rules, there's a limit of 5 3/4 inches. There is no weight limit, and that is specified. Now, if you want a horse that is free moving, forward moving, you do not want to have a long foot. You do not want to have a weighted shoe. A weighted shoe is going to shorten the stride, and it is going to heighten the stride, which are exactly the opposite of what you're looking for. Very strange microphone. Just sort of